Hello and welcome to the Flourishing Center Podcast. I'm Emilia Zhivatovskaya, your host and founder of the Flourishing Center. We are training the change agents of the world and equipping them with research-based tools for healthy, happy, and successful living, and we're so grateful that you're here. Each episode features 3 sections. First is the Science Says section, where we summarize a recent research study and show you how to put the science into action. Next, we give you a research-based life hack with simple strategies for incorporating positive psychology into your life for greater well-being. And then our Practitioner Corner is where we interview someone who's out there living, breathing, and spreading positive psychology in their own unique way. Learn about how they're growing their personal and professional work and get inspired with strategies for how you might use positive psychology in your own life. Thanks for listening, and let's dive in. Hello, and thank you so much for listening. Today we are covering some new research that has come out this year on a form of therapy called Metacognitive therapy, an approach that's different than cognitive behavioral therapy, where it's using thinking about thinking as a strategy for conquering negative thoughts. From that, we're going to talk about how to overcome rumination for our positive psychology-based life hack. And in today's Practitioner Corner, meet Chianti. She is creating positive pop-ups everywhere, and she is just filled with boundless energy and amazing thoughts and interventions for how we can all increase our happiness and well-being. Let's dive in. Why, hello there. So excited to be here with you today to share with you this research study that came out in the beginning of the year titled Metacognitive Therapy for Depression in Adults, a waiting list randomized control trial with 6 months follow-up, published in the Frontiers in Psychology. One of the reasons this study excites me is because while it is working with a clinical population, people who are depressed, it gives us so much insight about what every single one of us can do, whether you're struggling with depression or anxiety or just day-to-day life. It has a lot of different strategies that we can apply for how we can use metacognitive practices in day-to-day life. Just as the name suggests, the study was a randomized control study where one group received the intervention and the other group was a waitlist control study. The metacognitive model is a really interesting one. They believe that psychological disorders result from an inflexible and maladaptive response to a way of thinking, and they call it CAS, Cognitive Attentional Syndrome, which within itself is an interesting word to say that when we are struggling, perhaps we have an issue of where are we putting our attention when it comes to our thoughts. They explore things like rumination, why people ruminate, and what we think we will gain from ruminating. They look at depression as a coping strategy that follows the negative thoughts or trigger thoughts that people have. And they look at 2 different types of ruminative thoughts, what they call positive metacognitions and negative metacognitions. An example of a positive metacognition would be the type of quote-unquote negative thinking that we think is going to help us. This is when we're doing things like, and I quote, analyzing the causes of one's sadness and thinking that analyzing why they're so sad is going to enable them to answer their problem. Or things like thinking about the worst case scenario or thinking about the worst will just help a person snap out of it. This is when we have negative thoughts or cognitions that we think will actually aid us. One of the things I find interesting is that they're comparing metacognitive therapy to cognitive behavioral therapy, where cognitive behavioral therapy is focusing on the content of one's thoughts and invites people to reality test their content. What metacognitive therapy is offering is instead of looking at the content of one's thoughts, it's looking to eliminate these thoughts by looking for erroneous metacognitive beliefs and looking at how can we get people thinking more flexibly around that internal dialogue that they're having with themselves. And they focus on training things like attention and detached mindfulness and actually holding off on rumination as a strategy for helping people get control of their brain and therefore get more flexible executive control over their thoughts. According to the researchers, 70 to 80% of the participants who received the intervention were recovered at post-treatment and 6 months follow-up. whereas those who were in the waitlist control group only experienced a 5% benefit from participating in the study. This suggests that not only can metacognitive therapy be an effective treatment for depression and other emotional disorders, it may offer us some strategies and effective tools for how everyone can begin to deal with their ruminative thoughts. Join us next for our positive psychology-based life hacks, where we're going to explore what are some of the strategies that this research study offers us about how we can all ruminate less and feel more empowered by our thoughts. Welcome back. For today's life hack, we're going to focus on some of the strategies that were used in the metacognitive therapy intervention that you just learned about in the Science Says section. One of the first techniques that participants were trained in is increasing their meta-awareness. This is a really interesting strategy because the ability to simply zoom out the lens or take what we call the meta view is a helpful way to begin to capture your thinking. So zooming out the lens and starting to watch your thinking. Setting an alarm to go off on your phone, and when the alarm goes off, pausing and ask yourself, what was I just thinking about? As we increase our meta-awareness, we become more aware of our thoughts. Remember, you can't change what you don't have awareness around. So identifying what we're thinking about and the types of thoughts and triggers that lead to rumination is an important first step in the process. Next, participants learn to train their attention. How long can you focus on a single point, or your breath, or a thought? Actually training yourself in this discipline, whether it be training yourself to just focus on your breathing and watching the flow of the breath in and out of your nose or in and out of your mouth, is one of the ways that we can begin to take control of our thoughts, because by training ourselves in a simple focus practice, staring at a single spot with a relaxed gaze in your face, or repeating a word over and over again, and as your mind wanders, which it invariably will, bringing it back to the word. These types of training of our attention can be a real powerful way to help us regain control of our mind when our mind is being hijacked in directions we don't want it to go in. It's like learning to fly a plane so that when the autopilot isn't working, you know how to take over. Another strategy that the participants learned is that sometimes ruminative thoughts have this sneaky way of convincing you that they are somehow useful. We replay that conversation over and over again in our head. We say, I can't believe that happened. Or we replay the scenario that we are feeling frustrated at ourselves about, beating up on ourselves. I should have done it differently. And the reason that these are beneficial thoughts in disguise is that simply thoughts that are accompanied with judgments and stress are not enough to get us to take action and to problem solve. The types of thoughts we want to have are solution focused, curious, learner type of thoughts that are going to get us problem solving and keep us moving. But these thoughts can be really, really seductive. It's like thoughts that hurt you, but make you think that they're hurting you for a good reason. And sometimes, even though we know that it feels bad to think the way that we do, it's like wiggling a loose tooth. It hurts, but it kind of feels good. So it's really important for people to capture their rumination thoughts and say to themselves, these thoughts are not serving me. Or ask this question, how is my thinking this way serving me? And if it's not, what thought would serve me better? In doing this, we're going to be able to capture one of the most important cognitive skills for resilience, thinking flexibly and thinking accurately. Another problem with rumination and the types of thoughts that lead to anxiety and depression is that they keep us from generating alternative ways of seeing it. We become very stuck in this is what the future is going to bring, or we get stuck in thoughts like nothing's going to work out, I can't do anything right, I screwed up, I'm a screw up. Whatever those judgment thoughts might be, they are stopping you from looking at the full picture and the full spectrum of alternative ways of viewing the situation. And when we have those types of judgments, they're rarely accurate because the types of thoughts that we're thinking are thoughts that are permanent and thoughts that are pervasive, and very rarely in life is anything an always, everything, or nothing type of thought. So I love these simple strategies. Begin to train your attention, focus on increasing metacognition or awareness of your thoughts. Recognize that rumination thoughts are sneaky thoughts that mask themselves as useful thoughts, but they actually get in the way of problem solving. And as you start to think about thinking and direct your attention where you want it to go, you may find a sense of confidence that comes from being able to direct your thoughts. Otherwise, it's like having a television playing in your head, never recognizing that you can actually change the channel. When we begin to take these practices on, it's like reclaiming the remote control of your mind, that we can choose our frequencies, we can choose the stories that we tell ourselves, and our thoughts create our reality. And this is a much more empowering way of being in the world. Hello, everybody, and join me in welcoming Chianti Lomax to our Positive Psychology Practitioner Corner today. Chianti is a certified coach and founder of the Happy Pop-Up. She is a graduate of our Certificate in Applied Positive Psychology program, and she's tuning in to us from the DC area. Some things that you might not know about Chianti is, in addition to spreading positive psychology and happiness in her domain, she's also a certified Zumba instructor, which means she makes people joyful in their body, not just in their mind. And we're so excited to have her here with us to learn more about how she's bringing positive psychology to individuals and to communities. It's great to have you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really glad to be here and honored.
So Chianti, tell us, how did you get started in this work, and what is the Happy Pop-Up? Because all I know is saying Happy Pop-Up makes me happy just saying it, but I can't wait to hear more about what you're up to.
Sure, I'll do the short version today. I would say what I realized about myself a long time ago was that I really enjoy helping people. At the core of everything I've done in my personal and professional life, it's been surrounded around people and helping them in some way. And so around 2011, I was running a nonprofit with a friend of mine that was called Fit Fam Foundation. And the whole purpose was to help people change the way they thought and felt about what it means to be happy and healthy. And in that work, people were coming to me one-on-one and asking for advice. And they're like, there's something inside of you that's different. Like, how did you get there? And I'm like, well, it took a lot of like inner work. It was, the organization itself was born out of a rock bottom place and finding my way back through that personal journey, wanting to share it with the community. And I was like, oh man, like I really want to help people. How can I help people in a real way? That's not just me giving advice. And so I ended up stumbling upon something called coaching. And I'm like, well, what the heck is coaching? And I realized that coaching wasn't just giving advice. It was serving as a co-pilot to people, helping them to figure out how to manage their goals and their personal ambitions and their intentions with real tools. And so I jumped into this coaching certification program. The interesting thing about this program was that it was rooted in something called positive psychology. I'm like, positive psychology sounds really cool. Anything with the word positive in it sounds like my kind of thing. And so it was like my introduction to the science itself. And from that, it changed my life. Like, I mean, just so many things that I didn't realize that I had at my own fingertips to help me and the people around me. So it was really cool. Graduated from that program. And I'm like, oh my God, I've been bitten by the positive psychology bug. I want more of this stuff. And so I'm asking my instructors, I'm like, hey, how do I get more of this? And I know there's this graduate program at University of Pennsylvania. Like, how do I do that without like getting in tons of debt? And they were all like, well, you could go to the program, because a lot of them were MAP graduates. They were like, or you could check into other programs that may have a shorter term program and it may be cost effective. And one of my instructors, she was like, you should check out this place called the Flourishing Center. And she sent me the website link. And I'm like, oh my God, this is exactly what I need. It doesn't take as long. And the financial commitment is right up my alley. And so that's how I found out about the Applied Positive Psychology program through the Flourishing Center, your program. And so went through CAP. It was amazing. My instructor was amazing. My cohort was amazing. And I'm realizing that this positive psychology science is way doper and cooler than I ever thought it was before, because as I'm going through this program, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I went on this personal like evolutionary journey of finding myself, and I feel like I came out of it a better version of myself. The coolest thing from the program, I'll say, is the capstone. So, Katie, our instructor, is like, all right, guys, you learned all this great stuff. We've had a lot of intense classes. How are you going to allow all of this stuff we came up with to show up in your current work? And so, I'm coaching at this point, coaching millennial women on happiness. And I'm like, wow, well, like coaching is fun. I enjoy doing it. I'm helping a lot of people, but how can I do this work with positive psychology in a bigger way that helps more people in a shorter amount of time? And so, I'm running around ideas. I'm like, well, millennials love events, right? We love events. We love cool events that are attractive, that are fun, that are hip. But I'm like, we have short attention spans. So how can I take what I've been learning in CAP, in the PERMA B model, and create something that people will want to come to, that they don't feel like they're being talked to. They don't feel like they're being lectured. Finally, I stumbled upon this idea of retail pop-ups, right? And so, at retail pop-ups, it's usually like a new designer or someone in the fashion industry that wants people to come and take a look at their clothing. You get a whole experience of a store without the commitment of being there long term. And so I'm like, wow, what if I did a pop-up, but it was centered around positive psychology, but I don't call it positive psychology because I know some people, they believe that, they have a negative outlook on the word psychology. So I'm like, what if I just call it happiness? Because everybody gets happiness. Everybody wants to be happy. And so that's where the name, the Happy Pop-Up, came from. It was like, all right, so you're going to come to this event. It's going to be fun. It's going to be engaging. It's going to be interactive. And there's going to be a lot of positive psychology sprinkled throughout the event that you're going to be learning, but it doesn't feel like you're learning. So it's just a fun experience where you can come, and when you leave, you feel great. You are equipped with practical tools that you can do every day, like gratitude and mindfulness and meditation, movement, because I love Zumba and dancing. You can dance a little bit. There's music. You're creating authentic connections because you're kind of forced to play Connect Four with strangers. And over the Connect Four, you can't talk about what you do for a living. You just have to talk about yourself. And so the whole idea is to just bring positive psychology to people like me in a fun and impactful way. So that's where the Happy Pop-Up came from. And that's kind of what I've been up to for the past year.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much, Chianti. I actually recall that we did connect a couple of weeks, I think, into your CAP program about this fact that you and I share a passion for delighting people and creating these type of experiences. And I have a name for them that I haven't really heard anyone else use, but I call them edutanial because they're educational, they're entertaining, but they're also social, right? So they're edutanial. And for the first 12 years of my career, I had been a professional party entertainer, and I realized I love creating experiences for people and creating containers where they could have fun. But then there was this desire to integrate positive psychology so that it can contribute to their lasting happiness, not just being happy for an hour or a few hours. And I know that people are calling upon you more now to bring these happiness pop-ups in different places. And I just have so many questions, and I want to hear what type of requests are you getting and what kind of stuff are you doing that seems to really light people up the most, and tell me everything.
Okay, sure. I really like that term edutanial. I definitely haven't heard it before, but I think I like it a lot. I'm going to adopt it in my own vocabulary. So it's so funny because I had an assistant principal that stopped in the last one, which was in September, I think it was. And she's like, oh my God, this would be great in our schools during testing season. So, a lot of the kids are stressed out during testing season. She's like, we need something like this during testing season. I've been getting requests from people who are at colleges and universities. There's a guy who saw my video because I try to capture imagery of the event, because it's hard to explain something like this unless you understand positive psychology or you're just like a good visual person. So most people I need to see pictures. I need to see video. So he saw a video of it on social media. He was like, oh my gosh, I just started this undergrad program campus of Howard University, and I would love for you to come and bring this program during our Mental Health Awareness Month. And I'm like, great. And I also have a meeting in 2 weeks with an organization that focuses on people with disabilities. And they're like, this would be great for our employee engagement. And so I'm getting a lot of requests just from different places. And now I'm like, you have a vision and you have a dream to do something, but when it's like in fruition, it kind of, gets a mind of its own and it's growing. And so the goal for me is just to get organized and build a team that'll help me to take this, into colleges and corporate and in the schools as I continue to build it out. So yeah.
Awesome. And what are some of the different activities and positive psychology interventions that you weave into these edutenial experiences?
Well, the thing that's the biggest hit at the pop-up is that every pop-up, you're going to have a gratitude wall. A lot of people, especially in the DC area, they're stressed, they're busy. So this concept of taking time to be grateful, taking time to count your blessings helps them to slow down a little bit. And so the gratitude wall, when you walk into an event, you're going to automatically be ushered to the gratitude wall. And I found that people, after they walk away from it, they always find me and they're like, oh my gosh, like I've been so busy this week. I haven't thought about, how good it was to see my parents this week, or how great it was that, I made a client happy this week, or just little things that they found in their ongoing of life to be grateful for. And them actually following up with me later saying, I started doing this thing called gratitude and counting my blessings more frequently. And what I'm finding is it helps me to be more creative, or I'm finding more solutions for just simple things at work, or I just feel better and my mind isn't, focused on the negative things. And, when I explain the gratitude wall at the event, I talk about the downward spiral that happens when we focus on the negative. And I talk about, gratefulness as a pathway to creating a more light and happier mindset. We also talk about growth versus fixed mindsets, and how, having a growth mindset helps you to be more creative. It's because there's a lot of creatives that come by the event because they just see it as a happy event. Another thing we do is mindfulness. We do a mindfulness practice. And so I invite mindfulness and meditation, So I always invite one of my yogi friends or my meditation experts in, and they come and they'll lead the entire group. I've had 50 people sitting down on the floor doing meditation in like on an outdoor patio at a restaurant in DC, because I always try to find little funky places to have it. And so people are like texting like, oh my God, I meditated for 5 minutes and they're just so excited about it. And it's like the small victories. Something else I do is when you walk into the event, your entry fee is a hug. So you don't have to pay, but you do have to get a hug from I call them my professional huggers. And so a lot of people, especially single people in this area, there's not a lot of connection time. They don't, there's not a lot of physical touch. And so I introduced the concept of physical touch as a way to, increase those happy hormones that we talked about in our CAP classes. And of course, movement and dance as a way to, for the vitality piece of it. So there's so many different pieces of it that I introduced at different times, depending on the theme. But the things that are constant are my gratitude wall. The thing that's constant are the hugs, because I want everyone to get a hug, because we can go weeks without getting a hug, especially if you live alone and you're not just, a touchy-feely person. Of course, the mindfulness and meditation part is huge. And of course, my biggest thing is connecting. So we always introduce Connect 4 with a stranger as a way to really connect with people in a meaningful way. And people that connected at my pop-up are like now coffee buddies. And they told me like, thank you for introducing me to such and such, because now we meet on Saturdays for coffee. I just try to do little things that people will take with them in their, I call it their happiness toolkit.
That is amazing. And so I have to ask, how does Connect 4 work? Like, do you have a giant Connect 4 mat on the ground? I'm such a visual person. I'm trying to imagine it.
No, we literally have the Connect 4 box games, and we always have at least 4 of them, and we sit them around at the different tables throughout the event. And we just, usher people around. I have volunteers that are like, oh, do you want to play a game of Connect Four? So you literally see a whole bunch of people sitting down with randoms, let's call it randoms, and playing the game. The cool thing is I've played Connect Four with people, and I feel like it's a great networking opportunity, even though it doesn't start off that way. It's like, oh my God. And so now I'm like building a tribe of like positive and happiness junkies. And the coolest thing was one of the themes I had was the adult play date. So this, the idea of incorporating more play in our lives. And one of the pop-ups, all we did was play games that from our childhood. So we played Connect Four, we played Family Feud, we played the Bop It game. I don't know if you remember, it's like hit it, bop it, touch it. You do different things. And then if you time out, you don't hit the right thing, you pass it around in a circle. Another fun thing that's popular is hula hoop. So we have hula hoop contests at the pop-up. And it's just fun. It's like a big, happy adult play date with sprinkles and ripples of positive psychology.
Those are amazing ideas, Chianti. And I swear I want to be at your professional hugger trainings for your team because, that must be at the very least, I hope you all get properly warmed up before you start welcoming people with just,
Oh, yeah. We definitely do a pre-pop-up pep rally where we jump up and down, we dance, we do big group hugs and cheers before everybody walks into the door.
Oh, that's
so we
beautiful.
Definitely do pre-pop-up. Yeah.
Chianti, I would imagine zest is one of your top character strengths.
It is. Yes. Zest and social intelligence.
Yeah.
is my top one. So that's interesting, right?
Yeah. It's a great example of using your strengths to increase your well-being and to guide your way. What are some of the other elements of positive psychology that you've woven into your life in terms of self-care practices or interventions that nourish you?
What's funny is one of my favorite ones, the short version of it, I call it is taking myself to court. The one we learned about, just having more control of your thoughts and realizing that everything that you think isn't true. And so I'm one of those people, I'm a recovering perfectionist. And so being able to have that tool handy and saying, is this really true? What evidence do I have that this is true? What evidence do I have that this is false? And being able to demystify those negative Nancy thoughts that come on a daily basis, especially when you're creating something new, when you're creating a business and you're like, I'm not equipped enough. Another cool thing I think that helps me to get out of my own way is visualization. It's been really helpful, especially in my creative process. Whenever I go speak somewhere and I'm super nervous, so visualizing myself on the stage, talking to the people, seeing their faces, and not just the outcome, but the process of I've written out this amazing speech. I've practiced it a couple of times. So getting myself mentally from point A to point B has been so helpful for me as well. And even this idea of positive introductions when I'm meeting people or when I'm hosting events that are not just a pop-up, but other things I do professionally. It's like, all right, guys, let's talk about, your hero story. Let's talk about a time when you were, when you did something, you did something that you're super proud of as a way to create just better bonds in my network of friends and my professional colleagues. I think just those types of things that they have been really helpful. In journaling. Journaling is something that I do a lot of on a daily basis. My gratitude journal is something that I can't live without. It's something that I do in the morning and at night. And this idea of being more mindful and having a mindfulness practice, before the program, I thought I had one, but afterwards, being introduced to what it really means to be present, what it really means to be aware of what's happening in my body as a signal to, what could be health issues. I think having a mindfulness practice every morning helps me to just be more effective. So I take at least 5 minutes a day. And I actually use an app. Of course, I'm a true millennial. I use an app for everything. So I have a mindfulness app that I turn on and I sit up in my bed and it takes me through different mindfulness practices based on whatever I have to do that day. So those are some of my go-to things.
Awesome. I just want to highlight and recap some of the amazing things that you said there, maybe even just going in backwards order. So for those of you listening, the practice of mindfulness and knowing what you need to support you in that practice. And I love the use of apps. And this is a great example of how technology can really support us. It's so helpful to have a reference point, even and have many different approaches to mindfulness. So sometimes I know I need an app, and sometimes I just need myself and my body. And so having lots of different tools for that is awesome. And I hear you saying a gratitude practice is really essential for you. And you mentioned the strengths introduction. So those of you listening, if you're not familiar with what that is the opportunity to get to know a person through the lens of asking them about a time that they felt that they were at their best. And so it's a question, right? But it's such a different conversation. And what I found, and I'm sure you agree, Chianti, is that you get to know so much more about a person when you ask them that type of questions, not just who they are and what they do, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That was great. The one thing I didn't mention, and it's less of an intervention and more of a thought that I keep with me, and my friends are even saying it now, is giving myself permission to be human. It's like I've adopted it as my personal mantra, and like I hear my friends saying it when we're in conversations with big groups of people, and they're like, "I'm just giving myself permission to be human," but it's it's a way to reset mentally, to say, you know what, I'm not going to be perfect. Everything's not going to be perfect all the time. And so giving myself permission to be human helps me to just reset, clear my mind, and think through, okay, what can I do in the next moment? You know, what's my next best step versus I'm terrible, I'm a failure, I don't get anything right. But it's like permission to be human. It just, I don't know, it's something about that phrase just helps me to be recentered at all times.
I love that. I got this vision, Chianti, of you doing a recovering perfectionist pop-up.
Oh my God.
And it's like, whether you're a recovering perfectionist or you want to become one, like, come join us.
Yes.
You'll be in good company, but you're also going to learn some strategies to how to do this.
Yes, I love that idea, and I just wrote it down. I think for a long time, I was a prisoner to perfection. And I think that's the biggest thing that positive psychology has done for me, is it helped me to get over myself. We have these unrealistic expectations of who we're supposed to be. But I think understanding that I'm human, or just embracing my humanity, has helped open up a lot of mental space and remove a lot of junk from my mind over the past 3 years, I would say.
Thank you, Chianti. And I just want to summarize that intervention for those of you who might not be familiar with what it means to take your brain to court. It's a powerful way to think about that. If you were in a court of law and you said, Your Honor, I'm a failure, the judge would say, show me the evidence. So it's a really powerful way to keep yourself not getting away with certain types of thinking that aren't helpful. And I find it so fascinating, myself included, because I too, like you, am a recovering perfectionist, how interesting it is that my theory is that because our mind chatter sounds like ourselves, as opposed to when you can really clearly hear someone else, that's my mom's voice in my head, or that's a different voice. We believe it more because it sounds like ourselves, but we have to not take that so seriously and learn to actually say, where is there evidence for it?
Yeah, it's so great because I think another thing that I'm just really grateful for in being introduced to the science is just having a greater sense of self-awareness. And if there's any takeaway that I found through coaching clients and now my pop-up, which is it's my passion, it's people having this greater sense of self-awareness. And I think that's the beginning of having a more fulfilled life and flourishing. It's just understanding yourself, understanding what it means to be human, understanding that we're all connected. And I think that's just the beauty of the science itself, is reminding us to be aware and, that we are human.
And speaking of the permission to be human, I'm curious if you have any mottos or words to live by that help you be the human that you want to be.
My favorite one is my race, my pace. And the reason why it's so important to me is because I hang around a lot of overachievers. My friend group, my tribe, everyone's doing amazing and beautiful things. And it's so easy to get caught up in, oh my gosh, they're doing this, they've done that. And it's my race and my individual journey. It's not going to be like my friend Charlene's or my friend Atia's or my friend Dominique's. My Chianti's journey is significant and it's important. And what I have inside of me is important for someone else to receive. And I don't have to do it at anyone else's pace, excuse me. It's definitely my own pace. And it helps me to remember that, okay, Chianti, this is your journey. So you choose your speed. You choose what you get to do. You choose to set realistic expectations that are authentic to your own soul, not anyone else's. Because if I'm setting deadlines that are based on the person beside me, it's not going to feel good. I'm going to feel rushed. It's not going to be authentic to who I am and what I'm trying to accomplish. But if I focus on my own lane, if I focus on my own pace, it's going to feel good as I keep going. It's going to stubborn more. It's going to allow me to savor my accomplishments even more because I set things and I set these expectations based on who I am and where I am in my own life.
Wow, I absolutely love that. My pace, my race. I mean, that is just so powerful because I don't know about you, but I see so many people, and myself included sometimes, I get so caught up in what people are doing, especially with things like social media, and there's a saying I heard the other day where what we see on people's postings are their highlights. And oftentimes we're comparing their highlights to our lowlights because we're often on there when we're depleted or we're just feeling down. And so we're comparing our lowlights to other people's highlights, and it's not our race. Yes. Right? Oh, I love that.
It's not at all. And it's focus on your own race at your own pace because you're doing the best you can. That's to sum it all up.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. So helpful for us all to have that. In fact, I think I'm going to write it on a Post-it and put it on my computer, next to my computer for me to see it right now. Oh, Chianti, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your zest, your passion, your enthusiasm for what you're doing, and giving us so many great ideas and tips for how we can embody positive psychology ourselves. If people want to learn more about how they can find you, how they can work with you, how they might pop up some happiness somewhere near them, how can people reach you?
You can reach me online at www.thehappypopup.com or on social media, I'm at Chianti Lomax, at ChiantiLomax. And if you want to follow The Happy Pop-Up, we're also social at The Happy Pop-Up on Instagram.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being our guest today, Chianti, and keep on spreading the happiness and joy. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening. I hope you've gotten some valuable techniques and strategies from today's podcast and had some fun alongside us. Speaking of having fun, if you happen to be in the New York area or know anybody that does live in the New York area, I invite you to join us on December 11th, 2017 for our 4th annual Flourishing Center holiday party. These holiday parties are what we call edutainal. They're educational, entertaining, and social events where we combine putting positive psychology into practice in a party. Or if you happen to live in the Toronto area, our partners at the Canadian Positive Psychology Association have joined forces with us to offer another holiday party as well, and that will be an amazing time. And if you're shopping for holiday gifts, check out the Live Happy shop. They have all sorts of inspirational swag and stocking stuffing gifts that you can give to people that will not only brighten their day, but also help contribute to their well-being. So feel free to check those out. And as always, if you are enjoying what we have to say, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for leaving a review. We appreciate you, and without you taking the time to listen to this, it would just be me talking very lonely into a microphone. So thank you so much for being here, wishing you a wonderful holiday season, and looking forward to connecting with you all soon.